Today, let's talk about what happens to a pitcher's velocity when they stop lifting. And maybe they keep throwing, but all the training's gone. So a new study followed Division I pitchers through 8 weeks of skill-only training. And the results, well, they should be a really big wake-up call for anyone who thinks throwing alone or that they don't have to lift in season is gonna maintain their performance. So let's break down what happened, why it matters for in-season and off-season development. So in this study, they took 12 NCAA Division I pitchers. They went through a structured 8-week throwing program during the fall season. They threw bullpens, increased weekly effort, and the levels of intensity, frequency. They even faced live hitters. But due to COVID-era restrictions, they actually had zero access to the weight room. No strength training, just mound work. So researchers tracked their velocity, mechanics, and elbow stress using radar guns and wearable motion sensors. By the end of the 8 weeks, the results, well, they were pretty clear. The average velocity dropped by 6.3 miles an hour from 84.3 to 78 miles an hour. The arm slot, arm speed, and elbow torque, though, didn't change. Athletes still threw off regulation mounds, still faced hitters, still trained with intent in terms of throwing, but without resistance training. It was obvious that the fastball velocity could not be maintained as it dropped over 7%. So what's the key takeaway here? Well, it isn't just that strength training works, it's how quickly the absence of it shows up. You know, these were not just athletes taking time off, they were typically used to training on a regular basis. And frankly, they were still throwing, but velocity declined anyway. So what this really can show you is how fragile our sort of nervous system is and how high-level output, when training is removed, can be, really pulled down. And pitchers, for that matter, really have a tough time adapting to the high force environment. So what's more alarming is that their mechanics didn't change at all, right? Their arm slot, torque, and velocity, well, it all stayed the same, which means their movement patterns stayed consistent. So they were still able to organize well. But the force output, well, it wasn't there. So that's actually where it makes me the most nervous, because that's where injury can really start to creep in. So think about this, if you're throwing with the same effort but producing less force, you're either underloading the system or likelihood is unknowingly compensating somewhere else to maintain similar velocity. Both create problems over time, it's just a matter of which it's gonna show its face first. So let's talk about what we do here at VeloU to try and reinforce what this study has taught us and, I guess, unearth the truth behind it. So pitchers don't just need bullpens, right? They need load, they need impulses, they need stimuluses of a variety of fashions. We need to separate that strength and throwing are competing priorities. They're just interdependent to the system. Velocity is a byproduct of how much force the body can produce and transfer. And without regular resistance training or stimulus to that, the output, well, it will degrade. This is why we build training programs that treat lifting and throwing as mutually reinforcing components, not opposing components, right? Not just in the off season, but year round, even during periods of lower intent or competition, because basically most pitchers don't lose velocity in a single lift or in a single bullpen. They lose it in a quiet week of 6 weeks of detraining and no lifting and limited adaptations, right? And honestly, it's the lack of no objective feedback. And unfortunately, the objective feedback typically becomes my velocity has dropped, I'm injured, or I can't sustain the level of play that I used to. In closing, I want to put it to you this way. If you're serious about your performance and about trying to train at the next level or anywhere, even performing at the current level you're at, then doing so without the presence of a consistent stimulus that is potentially pushing towards overload at a certain point, even in season, well, then you're not going to see the success you typically want to see. At VeloU, we train with this mindset all the time. Athletes throughout every phase are then getting a hyper-specific sort of stimulus that they need so that they can respond. And we're constantly trying to use objective feedback to drive how intense, how frequent, and basically what volume do they need that stimulus. That is a very intricate design that needs to occur, which is why we suggest to everybody, get a coach, get a team, get a group of athletes, all of you, that are going to apply baseball science correctly, not just from well, I'm doing enough, without realizing you're just wasting time.